Given my surgery last week, I figured this is a good time to dive into my layered approach to peptides, topicals, and Shockwave, as well as some of the unique applications of use of the Shockwave. Now, before we dive into that, if you've got any questions around peptides in a post-injury, post-surgical standpoint, I do have the most comprehensive guide that you will find that references what we're going to be diving into depth today on my website, chrisduffin.com. Go to the blog, and you will find Elite Training Protocols Exposed. So this is going to go beyond just the BPC, TB500, stack that everybody goes is cutting edge. Welcome to over a decade ago. All right, so let's talk about what is involved with a Shockwave machine. All right, so a Shockwave is not like a Theragun. So we're not just mechanically hitting a muscle. We're actually inputting a sound wave. So within this, there is a hammer. And that hammer is run off a pneumatic cylinder that's controlled, and we can control both the frequency and intensity of the pulse that is induced into your tissue. And what does that do? Well, it actually breaks tissue down, right? So you really need to have an understanding of how to use the machine, because you can cause tissue loss, atrophy, things of that nature. But you can also do some things, and that's why this machine is FDA approved for treating calcified tendons, as well as non-surgical interventions for joints and increasing the range of motion as it relates to that. It's also how I was able to still have function in my arm, given my surgery was done at Curlin Joe by one of their top orthopedists, and it's the most challenging elbow they've ever come across, right? So it gives you some how was I operating? Well, this methodology is one of those ways. It's also how I knew that they were going to actually have to go and transpose the nerve, because I was still able to get as much range of motion to know that they were going to reach a point, when they're in the surgery and testing, that they were going to find that the nerve was binding, because I was able to find that post increasing range of motion with this approach, right? So now that we understand how the Shockwave works, here's some things that you can use it on. So any clinicians listening, test this out and you will see what I'm talking about. So there's a few applications that fall outside of that. So one of those is basically the change in, tone. We'll just call it change in tone of the muscle. So right now I'm going to today treat this. So this is some area that has been not draining too well. We've got some really challenging spots that are just like scar tissue, basically. In fact, I literally can bend a needle trying to poke into that right now. So a lot of this you can handle with manual therapy, scraping techniques, massage, ART, lots of different ways, right? It usually takes quite a while for that muscle to get softened up, with the tone to change, where we're actually able to drive some input. Basically, warming up of the fascial tissue is, I don't know if that's the technical understanding, but that's my understanding or interpretation from the stechofascial technique, right? So they spend a certain amount of time, warming that up, and then once we've got that change, you can get a little bit deeper in there. So this is how I use that. You can literally feel, so this is the test. Do it on a muscle halfway, and you can see the change from one half to the other. Feel the change, sorry, you can't see the change. And you'll be able to, if you then impose a scraping, Graston style technique or an ART, but particularly scraping, that you can go into that tissue and it's going to respond so much different. So we're going to scrape that tissue, and then again, movement is the big driver that's going to bring about long-lasting change. So you obviously want to follow that up with movement interventions, so we can drive the neurological processes for the adaptation of the body, understanding it's safe to move within that range, and so on, right? We're not going to dive into all that. The other interesting thing is that it drives and disperses things deeper. So things being topicals or injections. Ding, ding, right? So we can change the tone of the tissue, but we can also drive things deeper into the tissue. So with that, and obviously, if we do an injection, just do that, you're gonna maybe be able to get that into some of the areas that a little deeper into there. Now, if we combine that with a proper topical, so this one here is by Pros, it's called Nerve Cream. So this functions by enhancing both blood flow as well as nerve function due to the ingredients in it as well. So we've got, blood, neurological, but also bringing down, let's say, bad inflammation. I'm not going to dive into what good and bad inflammation are and how that mechanism works based on the ingredients in here. I'll leave that to the nutritional biochemist who developed that with Pros, who's phenomenal, by the way. He's been around the industry forever. It's an incredible product. He also uses CBD in here for not as a CBD cream like most people. That's this massive thing that was big for a while and now it's fallen off because, the cannabinoid receptors can be used as an unlocking key, again, to be able to drive that into and receive it in the receptors. So cannabinoid receptors can be a valuable thing to attack there. And so this is really incredible. So instead of a standard, this would be electrogel. And that's what you would typically use so that you've got conductive for the sound waves to go through the tissue. I'll apply this first, right? And as doing that, that's also going to now, I'll drive the peptide, inject the peptide first, apply the topical, and then apply the shockwave, and then apply the movement and your neurological, I say that, I use a lot of DNS or developmental DNS type techniques, developmental kinesiology, other avenues of basically attacking those pathways. Doesn't matter if you're a professional in this field who have many of those probably tools at your disposal. None are the secret. I also use another one. This is unlabeled and unavailable, and hopefully it will be soon. But this one is based on basically the Iron Fist, the Chinese medicine. And so essentially it operates on the same principles. There's, I don't know how many different versions of this, hundreds of them. It's been around for thousands of years and they, formulate it based on whatever the needs are. So another doctor I work with, he is very well trained in both Eastern medicine and Western medicine and pulls those two together. And so he's using a standardized version of this for this type of function to basically prepare tissue for work. So there's actually like a pre-training, and that's what we're gonna do essentially, right? But it works on those same pathways, right? It's going to have the stimulation of nerve function, stimulation of blood flow, the impact on the types of inflammation that we don't want, but he also combines it with a modern delivery agent, or not delivery agent, but penetrant. So these actually are used in combination. This one hopefully will be coming soon. It's by Dr. Roy Page, and this one, Sanjeev is the nutritional biochemist that's involved with this. I actually have the two of these introduced and they're working together because these are very synergistic and actually work at different depths. So applying those together, they're going to take the different components of each of these and drive those to multiple depths in the tissue. And then we're going to take that further with the shockwave and get into all sorts of nooks and crannies that you may not normally be able to access. And so that is the layered approach to using those components. So hopefully that provides some level of context. Oh yeah, by the way, this approach with the peptides and the shockwave is likely going to be in testing at the Mayo Clinic fairly soon. There's some discussions around that with the folks that we interact there. So yeah, so this is where I'm at right now. So this is fantastic. This is the most I've been in 10 years. Extension, right here. So this is, we're going to do a little bit of work right now with this methodology. I've already injected all of my peptides earlier today. I do those twice a day. Again, you can follow that, the most comprehensive guide you will see on christoffen.com. Now, if you want to see more information, like a YouTube where I drive and discuss further in like what I have in the article, but actually elaborate, in a verbal discussion, I guess, on the article around the mechanisms of actions with those peptides, please let me know in the comments. Thank you much. The simple reality is I will never achieve full range of motion with my elbow. But my goal has been able to eat M&Ms. This has been where I've been at for the last 10 years. Just want to be able to feed myself and get those M&Ms in my mouth. All right, I showed you where I was post-surgery before doing anything. This is 10 minutes in. Again, I won't get everything today, certainly not in 10 minutes, because the tissue has not been there in over 10 years, so it's going to take a little bit of work. But this is where we're at. Goal here. There. Yeah, this is the goal. Touching my neck with my thumb and my hand. I've not done that for well over a decade. See where this journey goes.